So last night, I was like getting stuff done, and I like white noise. I can't stand total silence. I have to have something happening, and I can't just have the TV on because it annoys me. So I literally just put it on John Wick, and I stopped. I was like running through my house doing tasks, and it was the scene where him and Common were in the mall, and they each had suppressors, and it was pew pew, just like that. That's what it sounded like, and I think that's what particularly gun control activists think that's what it sounds like. And it totally does not sound like that. And if you don't agree with me, then you can go to a range without a ear pro and you can try it for yourself and see if your ears are ringing after. I mean, it literally lowers it by, I can't remember how many decibels, to where it's like the dull roar of a giant concert, monitor. It's like pretty much similar to that. So I've never understood why it's a felony to own one. And I guess it stems from during, back in the days of yore when game wardens didn't want people going and, harvesting animals with, I don't know. There's all kinds of excuses. So let's bring on somebody about this, because here's why. Pam Bondi, it's reported, AG Pam Bondi is considering perhaps doing something about this. I want to know what that means. And the people to talk to are the folks over at the American Suppressor Association. Joining us now, Knox Williams, who is the president and executive director of this awesome organization. He joins us now video. Knox, it's good to have you. So tell me what the AG is considering here, because to me still it's insane that it's a felony to own something that is considered, if you are in Europe and you're hunting, and you're basically like a hillbilly if you don't have one, because it's considered bad manners to hunt without one of these. Talk to me about this. What is being proposed?
Well, Dana, thanks so much for having me on. I'm really excited to be able to chat with you. And I think you're absolutely hitting it on the head with this. It's interesting where suppressors are one of the things that's more heavily regulated in the United States than in many European countries. For the firearms components and accessories, it's almost always the inverse. So it's something that really doesn't make a lot of logical sense. These things have been regulated under the National Firearms Act since 1934. So think Prohibition era, when FDR and Attorney General Homer Cummings wanted to ban guns. They understood that they didn't have the constitutional authority to do so. So they took things like machine guns, and the original draft actually had handguns, and suppressors for handguns were supposed to be the only provision related to suppressors included in that. The NRA at the time lobbied to get handguns taken out of it, but the inclusion of handgun suppressors turned into a blanket inclusion of suppressors across the board, really for no reason that we can discern. It's the only provision of the National Firearms Act that didn't have actual meaningful congressional debate. And it really kind of doesn't make any sense. It's all based around the misconception that a silencer can actually silence the noise of a gunshot, when in reality, the truth couldn't be further from that.
And tell people too, because I always see this debate online. I mean, the correct term is suppressor. I think silencer was like the olden days, not totally accurate term, because it doesn't silence anything.
Absolutely. So the law considers it a silencer, muffler, anything that can diminish the report of a firearm. And it's interesting that they call them silencer and muffler by name in the statute, because the gentleman that invented them, Hiram Percy Maxim, he got his first patent in 1909. He also invented some of the first automobile mufflers. So it's the same exact science at play. You're taking a hot gas, you're giving it a chamber to cool and more slowly expand and hit the air, which reduces the overall noise signature. This was a guy that just hated loud noises, and he thought, hey, I don't want them on an internal combustion engine. I also don't want them on a firearm. It's interesting how differently we treat them between the two, when really at the end of the day, it's the same exact thing.
Yeah, and for those just joining, we're talking to Knox Williams, who's the president and executive director of the American Suppressor Association, because AG Pam Bondi is considering, reconsidering, I should say, the DOJ's position on suppressors. They have this task force that's been established to push this. Are you confident? Let me gauge your optimism, because I think AG Bondi's been, and I'm not asking you to weigh in on her job performance, I think she's been doing a pretty good job. I had some concerns about her, two-way authenticity when she was in Florida. But if you're doing the will of the voters, and if voters are, wildly against gun control, as they are in every measure that's ever been taken, I'm willing to give it a chance and see what happens. But I just don't know if this is something that's being thrown out as a way to say, no, we're still 2A, or we're here on, or if it's like they're really going to take action on this, because I've heard this from lawmakers before. And it just seems like it's something that's so simple and easy to do because of the actual, because of how it works. And it's just so incongruent with how it's presented, particularly by the ATF. And I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We're very optimistic and think that thus far, Attorney General Bondi has done a fantastic job. Where there's a couple different silos where we're waiting to get action and final word from Bondi and the administration. First off is the response to the first pro-Second Amendment executive order that we're aware of in history, right? That was a very big deal when Trump came out and put out that executive order, basically asking the DOJ to examine all firearms policy as it pertains to the executive branch and recommend changes, right? We're talking about 4 years under the Biden administration of complete weaponization of the entire federal government and their targeting of the Second Amendment community, which was second to none. There's a lot to clean up. And yes, they've missed the deadline. They were granted an extension and we're still waiting on that. But to me, that signals really that they're trying to get the job done right, that they're focusing primarily on doing it properly rather than expediently. And I really, for one, appreciate that. Another area that we're waiting for word on is in a case out in the Fifth Circuit called U.S. v. Peterson, which is something that an acting U.S. attorney out there put out basically the government's position about a month and a half ago that said, hey, suppressors shouldn't be covered by the Second Amendment. And when the Attorney General caught wind of that, I mean, they issued a decree saying basically, hey, we're going to come back and we need more time to be able to re-examine our position on suppressors. They have just this week on Wednesday asked for another 30-day extension on that. And again, to me, that signals, hey, we want to make sure that we get this right. Yeah. We want to make sure that we have the time to do our due diligence and make sure that it's properly done, not just done quickly. When you're talking about litigation and whatnot, where things have a very lasting effect in terms of establishing precedent, I really appreciate that and really love the job that they're doing and can't wait to see what they do come out with.
That's a very good point on that. A very good point on that. And Knox too, it still floors me that it's to have a suppressor and it's not registered, you don't got your stamp, and it's a felony, even though it doesn't really, and because I think they're a valuable thing. I think it's great for hearing protection, especially if you're like, you got a bird dog. I think it's great, but it doesn't reduce the sound to the point where you can't hear the gunfire. And I've heard this from so many elected officials, like in states like Illinois, in New York, where I'm going with this, in California, where they're like, we just can't have these gangbangers out there shooting people and nobody hears it. That's why we got that. That's not how that works, though. Talk a little bit about the science of it, because from everything that I've read, and I've shot with suppressors before, they're loud. They're really loud. I mean, I think people are shocked if they've never, gone to a range, they've never shot with a suppressor before. Yeah, you still need ear pro, I think.
Absolutely. So, I mean, look at the experts, right? You don't have to take my word for it. Look at what the National Hearing Conservation Association, the Academy of Doctors of Audiology have put out, where they say suppressors are an effective way to help mitigate preventable hearing damage, tinnitus, noise-induced hearing loss, any of those sorts of things. But even when shooting suppressed, it is still advised that you shoot with traditional hearing protection in a layered approach, in much the same way that, if you get in a car that has airbags, you're still going to buckle your seatbelt, right? It's a layered approach that makes it a safer experience. Generally speaking, a suppressor on a firearm is going to reduce it by 20 to 35 decibels. That's about the same reduction that you're going to get out of traditional hearing protection like earplugs or earmuffs. And there are some benefits to suppressors that don't extend to earplugs and earmuffs, right? They should all be used in conjunction with one another. No one should be singled out as anything. And the idea that you can put anything onto a firearm and make it actually silent or inaudible or so quiet that someone standing 10 feet away from you is not going to be able to hear it, like in that John Wick movie, is about as real as the dinosaurs that you see in Jurassic Park. It's all fake. It's all used for plot points. And if you've never seen and heard suppressed gunshot for yourself, it's easy to buy into that. But at the end of the day, at this point, people that still foster those ideas are either willfully ignorant or intentionally misleading.
Yeah, it's like how if you shoot through a pillow, it doesn't make it quiet either.
Yeah, exactly.
So, last question for you. So with all of this in front of us, I don't understand the objections that anyone at the ATF or anyone who's opposed to this. I just don't understand the merit of their I think they are without merit. I don't understand their reasoning. Give me a little insight as to what arguments that you have to push against in your role with the American Suppressor Association in advocating for this, because I just don't understand what their objection is to making this, accessible to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on who you're talking to, right? You've got your anti-gun zealots. There's just no appealing to reason with
Right.
them, right? It's almost like arguing a religion. You're just not going to get anywhere with it. Thankfully, one thing that I will say is the AG and the administration have really done a good job of rooting out a lot of those institutionally anti-gun folks at ATF,
Oh, that's
and
good.
putting in good people like Robert Leider, who's chief counsel over there right now. That was a fantastic move and absolutely critical. I think the next step is going to be getting the right person in as a Senate confirmed director. They need good leadership, regardless of the trajectory that they're going to take ATF. You've got to have somebody at the top who understands the issues and can operate in that environment. And I think that's the next big step, at least as far as we see it, to make sure that the weaponization is done and that we can do everything that we can over the next 3.5, 4 years to make sure that it is incredibly hard for any future administration to pick that weaponization back up.
I want this to be so successful. I would love to see this happen, because it is. I mean, because after a while, even when you have your cans on and it just a little bit extra help, if you're out hunting, especially if you hunt a lot. I mean, that it really does go a long way in helping to preserve hearing, and there's just no legitimate reason to oppose it. I'm really happy that you guys are really finding some success with this, and I've been talking to assume y'all been talking to DOJ and talking to the AG and all that. I'm glad that you guys are there are doing that. Please keep us updated, and we'd like to have you back to kind of follow this, because this would be a huge victory. And as you said, that EO that came in from POTUS, I've never seen a president do a 2A EO like that before. So that was, it surprised me, and I was incredibly happy about it. So I assume you were as well. So this is all great. We're moving in the right direction.
Absolutely.
All right, there you go. Knox Williams, it's a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much. We'll have you back. Executive Director, American Suppressor Association. You can find him on X at AM Suppressor. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate all the work you do. God bless.